Hello, Southside Junior High. This is Coach Hyde coming with some answers on a science review. Just to let you know, I did not come up with this worksheet. It came from a packet from a partner teacher who I think purchased it from a website, Teacher Pay Teachers. And it is a year in review for a specific class that had an interactive notebook. Well, y'all don't have this interactive notebook, but it's a good review as we get closer to our final exams and benchmark exams. So let's go through some of these topics that we should know about science. If you will go to the page that looks like this. Solubility is in the top left-hand corner. And what I want to make sure to go through with you is talk about each topic briefly and make sure that you have the correct answers on here so that you can get a good grade. So starting off with solubility, we've got a glass of water. And solubility is where we're talking about things that are dissolving. Does it have the ability to dissolve in another substance? So the substance that we're dissolving into is water. And we're asking the question, does sugar dissolve into water? And so sugar is dissolvable. It does dissolve. So I'm going to write dissolve. How about dissolves? Salt, it too will dissolve. What about sand? No, sand does not dissolve in water. Sand will settle or sink down to the bottom. So we'll just call this settles. So we've got the answers in here. Remember, to get full credit, we're going to need to decorate this nicely by coloring it. Remember, we can outline with markers. We'll color with the colored pencils just so it looks nice and neat. Next, we're moving on to states of matter. I've got 3 states of matter here. We can identify what they are. So here we have a box. We're going to call this our solid. Here, this blob in the middle is going to be our liquid. And here we have a little cloud shape. And this is our gas. So we have 3 main states of matter. And if I zoomed in on a microscopic level, going down into the molecules and the individual atoms, solid, they're going to be closely packed. They're going to be basically just vibrating against each other. As we add energy to the system, as we provide energy, it excites the actual molecules. They start moving more freely to where they can begin to flow, and we call that liquids. Continue to add energy to that liquid, and it's going to convert to a gas. So these are our 3 states of matter. What we want to figure out with these arrows is, what is that process called? So if I think about water, if solid water, we would call that ice. Liquid water, gas would be water vapor. So how do I make ice turn into liquid water? Well, it melts. Okay. As I apply more heat to the liquid water to get it to go to a gas, it evaporates. Okay, if we want to go the process in reverse, a gas turning back into a liquid, it condenses. And if I want to go liquid to a solid, it freezes. So melts, melting, evaporates, condenses, and freezes. All right, so here we've got same application dealing with a liquid to a gas. Okay. At 100 degrees Celsius, what is this process of changing from a liquid to a gas? Well, this would be its boiling point. Okay. So here we have 0 degrees Celsius. We're looking for liquid to a solid. I'm just going to put an L for liquid and an S for a solid. And what is that point? Well, that is the freezing point. Here we have a solid. Supposed to be a blob again to a liquid. And what would we call that? Well, that's the melting point. And so as we look at this, we're typically talking in the junior high level, we're going to be looking at water in any lab situation. Of course, other molecules and different elements will have different points of boiling, freezing, melting, whatnot. Moving on to density. Okay. If we have a container with various substances in it, okay. Here we have oil and water. It's an often used example. We know that oil and water does not mix. The oil is less dense and the water is more dense. Relative density is typically where we're talking about relative density. We're choosing a substance for it to be as a frame of reference. And generally, again, in middle school science, we're always going to talk about water. So if it floats, it is less dense than water. And if it sinks, if the object sinks, it is more dense than water. Moving on to forms of energy, we've got several different types of forms of energies. Using the word MELTS as an acronym, we could come up with different types of energy. Now, under energy, we have two main categories. We've got kinetic energy, or energy of motion, movement, and then we have potential energy. So we're talking mainly here about kinetic energy. M is going to be mechanical. Here we have movement. E is going to be electrical. And this is actually going to be on the molecular level, the sharing or gaining of electrons, or the movement of electrons. L is going to be light. T is thermal. So we're dealing with heat. And lastly, S for sound. Okay. We've got air molecules that are vibrating. There is movement there. So sound is also considered a kinetic energy. Moving on, almost finished, mixtures. Okay. We've got mixtures versus solution. Mixtures can easily be separated. So if I have a bowl of cereal, I can easily separate my Lucky Charms marshmallows from, I don't know, the other grain, nasty pieces, whatever that is, the cardboard. Okay. When we do that, when we have a mixture, when we put those things back together, it's in its mixture form. It's going to keep its physical properties. However, if we have a solution, if something has been dissolved into another substance, to separate it, it's going to take a little bit more work. In order to separate, we need to have an evaporation of some kind. We can, for instance, if we had our example up here, and I wanted to take the salt out of a glass of salt water, in order to do that, I would have to evaporate the water, and what would be left behind would be salt. So when I have a solution and I have these solutions, the physical properties have been changed. All right, in this last box, this was the most confused my students were trying to figure out. This is not asking are these renewable or alternative. You're not trying to choose which one is which. All of these are looked at as either renewable energy or alternative energy. So we're looking at trying to figure out what the picture is and then what would we call that energy. So with the sun, you've seen solar panels everywhere. So this is solar energy. Okay. These little squiggly lines, these are supposed to be water, I guess to indicate waves, and we're going to call this hydro power. Sorry about that. Here we've got a flower. Okay, that is life. Life is bio. And it doesn't have to be just plants. It could be other types of organisms, but we can harvest them for energy. Biomass is the type of energy. Now this one had a lot of people stumped. The drawing here is not a very good clear drawing. I'll be honest, I don't know what they're trying to show here, but this is geothermal. This is taking the heat that is under the surface of the ground, okay, harnessing that heat. And the last one, this is supposed to be a fan or a windmill, and these lines are wind. So we have lots of these wind farms that are popping up, and we can just call this wind power. So I hope this video helps. 11.5 minutes longer. Maybe I went a little bit longer than I was planning on it, but hopefully you have a better understanding. And now I know that as long as you go through this, you're going to get a good grade. Keep studying science. It'll lead you to good grades in school, maybe even a profitable career in the future. As always, I'll do anything I can to help you out. Leave me a comment down below if I said something by mistake, if you have any further questions, or you just want to say hello. Check out the next videos for the other 3 parts.